Well, let's get this guy finished up and let's get outside and start rough carving. That's all coming up next. Stick around. Well, good morning. Welcome back here to the shop where we are continuing work on our orders that we have for Christmas of 2022. Our little horse just left this morning for San Francisco, so it is on its way. So now we can go ahead and focus on the other two that we have. And I've gone ahead and I pulled our head down off the shelf behind me. This is the head that I was working on over the summer over at the show that I was in. And there's not much more to do on this. There's some more carving to do and mostly sanding and some fine tuning. Then we can go ahead and get this mounted to the top half of our body block. After that, then we can add the neck muscles and get it fastened down tight to our body. Then hopefully we can get out this week and get outside and start getting this roughed in. Where we left off the last episode, I was working on gluing up heads. I've gone ahead and I finished not only gluing the heads to the neck muscle or the neck block, but I've added our ear and eye pieces to these too. So really all we need to do is take the clamps off of these and set them aside to dry. So that's where I'm going to start here this morning. I've got the drill here and I've got a few things to set up, but let's go ahead and start working on this head and let's get this knocked out. A couple of good hours here, I think we can have this ready to go. All right, I'm all set up here to start finishing up this head that we're working on. This is a medium head. Now, I do want to kind of maybe take a minute here. We'll go over a few of the tools that I'm going to use here to finish up this head. And I also want to mention that this is basswood. I've been getting some new subscribers to the channel, which is fantastic. One of the questions that people are asking is, what kind of wood am I using? What is a good wood to carve with if you don't have access to basswood? So again, basswood is what I use here at the shop, and a lot of times I'll use basswood with poplar. Poplar and basswood kind of share in the same family, or they're part of the same family. So, but I was fortunate enough, again, I have a kiln that's not far away from me, and I have stocked a bunch of basswood for me, so I no longer have to kind of, kind of save my basswood. I used to do that and use a lot of poplar, but now that I have access to an adequate amount of basswood, I don't need to worry about that. But poplar would be my second choice to carve these horses with. So, if you don't have access to the basswood, then yeah, grab some poplar and, start gluing that up. It carves just as well as the basswood. Now, as far as the tools that I'm going to be using, that's another question that I get asked a lot. And for this, since I've already carved most of this, then we're just going to focus on the sanding part of things. Now, again, I like flex cut gouges, flex cut knives. That's what I use. I also have Swiss made here at the shop. You really only need a couple, so I am going to go back and use some of these to carve down some of the eye sockets and this area here that's just a little bit too high yet. So I'm going to work on taking that down. My favorite tool, though, that I was introduced to by a friend of mine that is a chainsaw carver a few years ago, he said, get some of these. Have you ever used these? And I said, no. These are little sanding wheels, and I get them from Klingspor. I'll put a description I'll put a link to the description down below of what I'm talking about and where you can get these. These are, I'm telling you, these are fantastic. And, you know, any of you that have ever carved or are carving and have never seen these, boy, I'll tell you, pick up some of these, and I'll tell you, this is going to be a really invaluable tool for your carving arsenal. I get them in 100 grit and 80 grit. This is 80 grit here, and this is actually going to take this down really quick. I can use some of the sharp edges when I get a new one out. I can use some of the sharp edges to go in and add a little bit of detail. There's just an awful lot you can do with these, and they are a time saver. So like I said, I'll put a link in the description where you can get them. Second most important, this is the second most important tool that I have here, is the Sandoflex wheels. And I get these in, I have them loaded up with 120, and then I have a second one here with 80 grit. So again, these are tools that back in the early 90s when I was over at the Carousel factory in Mansfield, Ohio, these are the same tools that the carousel carvers over there were using. So this is what these guys are using. You know, I always thought years ago when I was starting out that, you know, you use just a mallet and chisel and just go to town and then sand it. But no, I got to see, you know, again, and this is what they were showing me, is one of the #1 tools that they were using were the Sandoflex, along with other grinders. And maybe I'll get into doing another video on the grinders and the attachments for all of that. But again, I'm just going to focus on our sanding and getting this head finished up for today. The Sandoflex, I'm telling you, these are fantastic. You can get your refill paper again at Klingspor. I get all of my paper, sandpaper for the, you know, my 5-inch sanders and things. I get all of that from Klingspor, and look in the description. I'll put a link to all of that. That's really all I'm going to focus on and use for today to get this finished up. And like I said, in a couple of hours of using these few tools here, we're going to have this head knocked out in no time. So let's go ahead, let's get started. I should say too, the dust mask. I use Dust Be Gone. I really like this because you can wash it out and, you know, hang it up to dry every night and keep it nice and clean. I've used all kinds of other masks out there, and I just prefer this one. I think it is for the money. I've had this now for probably close to 2 years. And like I said, I just keep, you know, washing it with a little bit of soap and water. You know, you just kind of swing it in the air just to kind of wring it out and hang it up to dry. Really, I really recommend these. So what I'm going to do now is just start with my 80 grit on the Sandoflex, because I've got enough carved at this point that I'll start to sand this, and with the Sandoflex it'll make quick work of it. Then I can start seeing my lines. I can kind of see how this head is going to shape. Then I can go back in with my carving tools and things and start, you know, working down what I want to work down. But I'm going to go ahead and give this a quick sand, and like I said, that's going to kind of show me my lines and see what more I need to do and you know, remove and work on. Once I get my, there we go, get my paper here. You can loosen up the screw on these Sandoflex attachments and just kind of shift the wheel a little bit. That's going to, you know, allow some more paper to come out. And once you get it going, then it just all comes kind of pulls out. So in just a couple of minutes, you know, you can start seeing, you know, how the jaw is going to work out, how this eye socket area here is going to start to work out. I even have a little bit of a nice line, a nice ridge that is starting to form. And again, I'm going to hit this area here that's still a bit rough. We can come in here with these little sanding wheels and kind of work that down. Again, I've got to bring the nostrils in a little bit. They're too far out. But, you know, these wheels can get up underneath here and kind of sculpt the underside of the jaw and bring that out. And it just, those really make quick work of these heads. So I just see here a little bit. Let me see if I can. It's hard, and I apologize, to try to get the camera so that I really want you to see what I'm doing, but it's kind of hard to see if I can move you here a little bit to show you in here what I'm doing. But I'm looking here. Well, now since I've sanded, I can see that I'm off here. So let me look on this side. So it looks like I need to bring this in a little bit. So I'm going to work on carving that in a little bit. It's real close, and this looks like it's a bit thick right here. So I'm going to take a little bit here with my knife, and I'm going to work this down, and then we'll just keep sanding it and working it. I don't think this is going to take too much here to get this evened up. I had a really nice conversation this morning with a gentleman from Knoxville, Tennessee, Will, and he was telling me that he had bought the plans a couple of years ago, and he's a little bit stuck, and he'd really like to get this finished up, and he came across the channel here, and it's kind of given him a little bit of inspiration, and he started pulling his tools back out and getting things dusted off, and he's getting excited about possibly working on his horse some more. That really gets me excited when other people kind of see what I'm doing here, and it gets them, you know, kind of gets them inspired again to start carving. And again, I think that's what this channel, that's why I started it on here. And we're talking, Will may come up from Tennessee and hang out with me here at the shop, and I'm gonna possibly see if I can help him on a few areas that he's stuck on. So that may be coming up here in the future. But yeah, I'm happy to help anybody that needs it. That's, you know, one of the other things that I'm here for. So if you're thinking about possibly starting one of these, then, you know, and you get stuck, you know, you're welcome to email me and ask me questions, and I do my best to help you. Okay, this is looking pretty good here. And again, I apologize. I know you probably can't see, this isn't the best camera angle. I tried mounting the camera to my head at one point. You know, you can get with these GoPros, you can get the head harness, and I did try that. It's pretty darn uncomfortable. So my hat's off to those of YouTube creators out there that can put that on their head and balance it and get work done, because I'll tell you, that just wasn't great. It wasn't my idea of trying to get the right shot. But I'll flip this around here so that you can see again where I'm working, what I'm doing. So hopefully here you can see this. I'm taking a little bit here and here, and I'm just trying to make this symmetrical as close as I can. And we can start sanding this again. But these ear pieces too, these ears, this is, again, something that I've learned, and I continue to try to hone in my skill and work on, you know, kind of perfecting my version of the English rocking horse, and studying pictures, and again at the Rocking Horse Shop and other pictures that are out there online. These ears, I always kind of made them look like, you know, a bent finger, and they were just kind of curved in. And it's only been the last 3 or 4 years or so that, you know, I've noticed that the other carvers start to carve these back and bring them down into this jaw. And so that is one area that I work on. And this still isn't done yet. I'll work on carving this back some more. But that gives it a really nice look when you do that. And again, I can bring this up and carve this back here even a little bit more and get this so that it flows right into this jaw. But this one's coming along. Let's go ahead and give it a little bit more sanding. Now, a horse's nose, if you study some pictures, they always kind of flare right down here on the bottom. And that's why when I carve these, I always kind of go a little bit thick, a little bit proud on these, because it's easier to take away than, of course, it is to add on. So I'm going to just start working this in here a little bit, because I want this bottom part of the nostril to just kind of flare out a little bit. Then I can kind of work the rest of it down. And again, using these little sanding tools, these little sanding wheel, you know, I'm just finding all kinds of uses for these. I've never done this before with this, so I'm going to try it and see how it comes out. Okay, there we go. You can see again where I'm bringing this bottom part of the nostril beyond the lip here. And again, with a nice new one, a nice fresh one, you can actually go in here, and I'll probably do that, and taper this top lip a little bit so I can kind of go in underneath here, dig this out a little bit more, and give that upper lip a little bit of a you know, contour there, and kind of define that lip a little bit more. But again, I can go in underneath here and just keep working this down underneath the jaw and just kind of keep shaping that. But again, never done that before. This is the first time I've tried using this for the nostril. Usually I'll go in here and just carve it by hand, and I'll still kind of go in here and clean this up because I want to add that little bit of the flap from the nostril that'll come in here. You know, that, I don't know what you call it, but there's like a little flap of skin in that nostril. And I'll go ahead and do that and carve it by hand. But yeah, these things are just so handy. And even the old ones I hang on to because they have a purpose. You can go in underneath in some different areas, even with one that's kind of used up, and continue using it. So we're ready to go ahead and glue our head down to the top part of our body block. Before I do that though, I've got my drill set up ready to go. Let's go ahead and cut the eyes in. Real easy to do. These are 3/4 inch glass eyes, and I'm going to use a 13/16 paddle bit or spade bit here. The way I do this, when you get the eyes, there's a wire that is left over or molded into these glass eyes. I use that as kind of a center point, and I'll just kind of line them up to where I think they're going to go and where I think they're going to look good. And then we can just drill out, again, using our paddle bit. We don't need to drill real deep, maybe, I don't know, 1/8 of an inch or so, just enough to leave a ridge because we're going to epoxy these eyes in. There we go. That's all there is to it. Now you can kind of see where we put this ridge behind the eye. Remember I told you when we set the eyes, there's a little bit, if you study and you look at horses' eyes, there's a little bit where the brow is that comes up. It's just kind of like a little crease or a line or a ridge. And that's what I added here. So when we go to add our eyes in here and we epoxy those in, then we can kind of feather the eyelids and have that come up through this little crease here. So again, just a little detail that I add that I think looks really, really nice. And these holes here, again, this is kind of an experiment I'm playing with because I have a bunch of this basswood. Some of it has some leftover, you know, a few wormholes in it. Again, when I go to epoxy and touch up around here, they're not very deep. They're certainly not active at all. And I'll just fill those in and we'll sand it and that'll be just fine. So let's go ahead, and we've got our block here. Let's get this head glued down, and then we can set it aside to dry. Go ahead and get this clamped down. Okay, so I laid out and I found my center for the top half of our body block. Also, I found the center of our horse's head. And this is where I said earlier on that when we glued the head to the neck or added a 5-degree bevel, because we want that head to be turning. And again, it's up to you. It's personal preference in my opinion. I always have my horses, the heads turning to the left. I have to think about it. Have to turn it to the left. You can turn them to the right either way. But we already have the head starting to turn to the left. And then I'm going to finish it off by turning it just a little bit more on the top half of my body block. And I've got the center points that I added to my holes, so that'll mark our locations where the dowel pins are going to go. And all we need to do is drill out the holes. Now again, these dowel rods, these dowel pins that I'm putting in, they're not really going to be doing what normally you would use a dowel pin for. They're really there to keep the head from moving while we go ahead and clamp it. There will be a little bit of benefit from doing that, but not much. I should say a benefit as far as the strength. Okay, that's looking pretty good right there. We'll set this aside to dry. We'll come back and we'll glue our neck muscles on tomorrow. Speaking of that, I've got some material glued up. I still need to cut out the neck muscles. So let's go ahead and get this taken off the bench, get our bench cleared off, and then we'll start cutting out the neck muscles. Okay, so our bench is pretty well cleared off. So let's move on and let's go ahead and lay out for our neck muscles. I have some material here. This is 1 3/4 inches thick that I've glued up. I have a couple of these, so I'm going to cut out a couple of neck muscles. There are 4. There's 2 on either side. There's this size that we're going to go ahead and cut out, and then there's a smaller one that is, let me see, right here where I can reach. So this one, this material again, this is 1 3/4 inches thick. So that's for the first muscle block. And then the second one is 1 1/4 inches thick. So again, I have all of that all ready to go. So I'm going to jump over to the bandsaw and go ahead and get these cut out. And then they're ready to go. So when we get in here tomorrow, in fact, I may even jump in here tonight and throw them on. So just before I'm kind of ready to go to bed, there's been times I jump out here in the shop and just get those glued on so that tomorrow when we get in here, we'll just have to glue up the small ones. And then later on in the afternoon, tomorrow afternoon, we should be able to get this glued down tight to the entire body. And that means, this is Tuesday, so that means Thursday, we should be able to get outside and start rough carving. So fingers crossed, but that'll be the plan. And if I can get outside Thursday, Friday, really a good day Thursday, I can have this pretty well roughed in. I can rough a horse in by power carving in really an afternoon. Okay. I'll go over to the bandsaw, get these cut out, and I'll be right back. And just like that, we've got the neck muscles glued on the upper part of our horse. I stayed late last night and I worked on getting these muscles glued on so that we can get in here this morning and today and get the top half of this horse glued on to our body. So that's what we're going to do right now. That's going to fit up nice. Let's spread some glue and get this clamped down. Now, every one of my horses, I always put a little something inside. You've got this cavity in here, and so I've already got a little note, a little something to put inside, just so that if it ever does get restored in 100, whatever years, then they're going to find some fun things in there. I always do that. And I always ask and let people, my clients, if there's something that they'd like to put inside, I always, let them know and they can send me something and I'll tuck it inside. Just a little fun thing that I do. Okay, that's way too much glue. Perfect. Let's get this set on and we'll get it clamped down. Okay, that ought to do it. Well, we'll set this aside to dry tonight, and then tomorrow it'll be all ready to go. We can get outside, get set up. We can get this horse roughed in. Well, crap. The plan was today is to get this horse we've been working on all week, get it outside and start rough carving and get that thing carved in. And well, as you can see, Mother Nature had other plans for us today. It's supposed to rain all day, so that is just not going to work. And I'd much rather carve outside, especially power carving, and keep that mess outside than in here in the shop. I've done it here in the shop and I'll do it again this winter. But if I don't have to at this point, I'd rather, again, set up outside. Even if it's cold, doesn't bother me. I'd rather do it outside than inside. So that means we got to come up with something else here to do in the shop on a good rainy day. And well, there's nothing better to do than let's carve some heads. So we have lots of bodies, but we don't have the heads. So I've gone ahead, I pulled a couple of heads down off the shelf that we've glued up, a couple of mediums. So let's get set up on the bench and let's carve some heads. So there is something else we could work on this morning, and this is something that I've been wanting to do here for a couple of years, and that is a new style of head. I love the old world look, the English version with the head tucked in, but the Rocking Horse Shop in England did come out with a new style of head, and I've had the plan sitting here for a couple of years, and I just have not had a chance to sit down and start working this out because I've been so busy building these ones. But I think today, with it going to rain all day today and we're going to kind of focus on carving heads anyways, let's go ahead and let's work on this new style as well. Now they call this their Thoroughbred Head, and this is plan number 111. I'll put a link in the description to the Rocking Horse Shop, and I'll put a link or a description of this plan too so that you can get one if you're interested. It comes with the templates for the medium size and the large size. Last night before I left the shop, I went ahead and I made my templates. I wasn't planning on doing this today, but again, since it's going to rain all day, this is a perfect opportunity. Let's go ahead and get some material down and get some things glued up, and then we can make this new style of head, this Thoroughbred Head, and get this worked out. We have plenty of bodies to put it on, so let's work on that this morning, and then we'll jump into carving some of these medium heads. And wouldn't you know it, I get all of my tools pulled out thinking I'm gonna jump right in this morning and start carving heads. And you know, I kind of changed my mind. I do that a lot here at the shop. I'll think I'm going one direction and I kind of change at the last minute and go a different direction. I'm sure I'm not the only one that does that. So I jumped up on top of my paint booth where I keep a lot of my lumber, and I was looking to see what I have that I could possibly go ahead and get this head cut out. And I do. I have a nice big chunk of basswood up there, so I got it down. I'm going to bring it over here, and that way we won't have as much to glue up, and maybe we can just kind of get right into cutting this head out and getting the neck and getting that glued up. So let me grab that. We'll throw it up here on the bench, and let's see what we can do with it. Oh, look at this big boy. Holy, my goodness. Oh, oh my goodness, is this thing big. Okay, let's see what we got here. Wow, that is quite a piece of basswood. This guy here is 12 inches wide, and it is, you know, 3 inches thick, so it's going to be perfect. Because these heads, again, the dimensions are going to go off the same dimensions as the medium and the large, which is 2 3/4 inches. And again, I go a little bit heavy on the 2 3/4. So yeah, perfect. So we'll be able to get everything we need out of this, and of course more. So let's go ahead and get this plane down, get it cut, and throw it through the planer and get our head cut out and get this glued up. Now let's see what a thoroughbred head looks like. Well, I'm really striking out here. As you can see, what I thought was pretty clear, and it is on one side, it's not as clear as what I was hoping on this side. You know, looking at it, I could do it. I could get a couple of heads out of this, but you know what? I really just don't want to risk doing that, because I'm afraid when I start to carve into the center here, it's going to be a lot harder material to carve through. And I just don't think it's worth messing around with. Not when I can use this for, you know, a bottom body block or the center section or even a top. There's lots of uses I can use this for, where I'm going to be pulling out my power tools and I can just kind of grind right through this, and it'd make quick work of it. And these knots and things wouldn't bother it at all. So I think I'm better off. Let's just set this aside. And I was looking around again to see what all I have, and believe me, I've got a lot of basswood. We haven't even touched the pile of basswood that I have outside in my shed. I've got a lot of really heavy, wide boards out there yet. So I looked around and I did pull this one down. This one looks pretty good. The only problem I have with this, it's cupped pretty bad. And I'm afraid if I run this through the planer, I'm going to lose a lot of material. I want to get it down to 2 3/4 or a heavy 2 3/4. So what I think I'm going to try is laying my pattern up here. It looks like if I run this through my table saw and take about an 1.5 inches off of this, that might drop some of that cupping down. And then when we run it through the planer, we may not take as much material off, and that might work a lot better. So let's try that. I'm going to run this through the table saw, then head over to the planer, and let's see if this one won't work. Okay, let's see what we got here. So this is 8.5 inches. We'll take about 1.5 inches off. Maybe a heavy 7 1/8 ought to do it, and adjust my height. Okay, let's head over to the planer. All right, let's give this a shot. Well, I think finally we got something we can work with here. This looks really clean. So let's go over to the bench and let's lay out our head. Okay. First things first, let's put this aside. Yeah, this looks a lot better. We have just a little bit of worm damage here, but it's not very deep and it's not going to affect us at all. So let's go ahead and we'll get a couple of heads laid out here. Okay, there we go. Let me get this cut out and we can head over to the drill press, cut out the mouth, and go over to the bandsaw and cut these out. Now, the nice thing is I've already have my paddle bit in here, my spade bit ready to go. And I did that because I cut my patterns out last night, so I used this bit to cut the patterns out, and it was the perfect size, so I'm ready to go there. Go ahead, we'll cut these out. Okay, those are cut out. Boy, it did not like that 3/8 bandsaw blade that I have in there. I just had to kind of take my time, but I didn't really feel like changing it out just to cut two heads out. But I think next time I will put a smaller blade in there, a little thinner blade than a 3/8. But we got them cut. Let's go ahead now. We've got to find some material. Maybe we can use that one big chunk of basswood there. Maybe we can get a couple of necks out of that. That would probably be a lot better for the neck material than the head. So let's grab that again. Let's take a look at that. Let's see what we got here. Well, I'm liking this a lot better than just trying to use this for our head. So yeah, this is going to work out really well. We can go ahead and we'll just cut a section out of this, and we can go ahead and cut our neck out of this piece here, because again, we're going to be power carving at this point. The head we have to use hand tools, but the neck we can get into our grinders and power tools, so we can cut right through any of the hard stuff that's left over. So let me throw it up here, cut a chunk off, and we'll head over to the planer and get it planed. That looks like that's going to work out. We're good on our thickness. So let's lay this neck out. I'll run over and cut it, and then we can get it all glued up. We've got two necks here cut out. Now what we need to do is head back over to the joiner, and the same thing applies. Just like our other heads, we want to put a little bit of a back bevel on so we can start turning this head just a little bit. So that's up next. So we'll head over to the joiner. We're going to take about 5 degrees off. And I think this time I'm going to do not only the head, but I'm also going to do the neck as well. And we'll give it a little bit more of a turn. I think it'll look a lot nicer. Okay, there we go. Set these out of the way. Yeah, that's going to give it a really nice turn by taking a bevel off of both the neck and the head. And if you noticed, I actually beveled one way, and then I'm beveling a head the other way. So I'm just gonna play around with it and see which one I like. I always turn my horses, the heads, to the left, and I know a lot of the English versions, they like turning them to the right. Again, I don't know the difference. I think it's personal preference, but maybe there's a reason they do it. But I'm gonna do them both ways this time around. Quarter-inch dowels. And again, using quarter-inch dowel pins here, they're not going to really do anything as far as strength. They're just there to keep the, the head from sliding around when we go to clamp it. All right, let's see how to clamp it here. Okay, I think that looks right. Never done this before, so you're getting to see what I'm seeing at the same time, because I've never glued or clamped one of these up before, so I'm gonna say that looks good. My joint looks really nice and tight, so let's gingerly set this aside to dry, and then we can come back tomorrow and add the eye and ear pieces. Well, now that we have our thoroughbred heads all cut out and they're clamped and glued, I'm going to let those dry the rest of the day, and I'm going to go ahead and focus on one of my medium heads here, and I'm going to work on carving this. But unfortunately, I think that's where I'm going to leave off and leave you go for this episode. It's amazing how fast this hour flies by. But don't worry, if you're interested in carving one of these heads, I'll put a link at the end of this video where you can go back and watch one of my videos on how I carve, a rocking horse head. As for the the Thoroughbred heads, I'm telling you, I'm really excited over those. Just looking at the profile, they are really cool sitting over there, and I'm really jazzed about, you know, carving one. So I think maybe I'll put a video together and we'll carve one of those together. And I've never done it, so this will be a learning experience for the both of us. So we'll do that in an upcoming video. I'm really disappointed though. The rain has not let up outside at all. It's just been a steady downpour all day. I was really hoping to get outside and, you know, and get this medium horse roughed in. It wouldn't take too long. So we'll have to wait till the next episode and do that one. But I think what I'll do with this one too is we're going to slow down and I'm going to walk you through, and we're going to go through step by step on how I power carve one of these horses. And once we get it all roughed in, then we'll go back in and I'll start adding the definition, and I'll show you how to elongate that neck or make that neck look longer. And again, how to bring out those definitions and some of the details in these horses. So look for that one next week. So hopefully you'll tune in. I really appreciate you all hanging out with me here at the shop. And again, if you're getting something out of these videos, I'd love to hear from you. So drop a comment down below or shoot me an email. And it's been a lot of fun talking to some of you that have been, you know, shooting me some emails and some comments. Again, hopefully you're getting something out of this that is worthwhile. You can always check me out too on Instagram and Pinterest. I have an Etsy page, and of course my website at Greenfield Woodworks. So thanks again for watching, and we'll see you here at the shop next week.